All right, welcome back everyone to George James and Associates Research Tools channel. And now we have finally arrived at the data set itself. And you'll notice that this is a column. Well, it doesn't say it up here, but anyway, it's a comma separated value CSV file. And so the annoying thing about CSV files is that even after you do some work in them and then you close them and then you reopen them in Excel, it's going to look like this. So it's going to squish everything together again. All the columns are going to be squished together. So we're going to probably start saving this as an XLS file. And the reason why we're going to do that is because I'm actually going to do the regression analysis using Regressit, which I guess I haven't downloaded on this computer yet, but that's fine. It's a fairly new computer. But anyway, I'm gonna go offline after a while and download Regressit. It would show up here at the end of this little ribbon, the main ribbon here. And so I'm going to just do all the analysis in Excel. There's really no reason not to do it. I'm not doing anything like Tobit regression, which requires other software. So if I can do it in Excel, I will, just because it's easier to clean data in Excel, at least for me. It's super easy, it doesn't require any coding and so on. So it's pretty easy. All right, so what I'll start doing is saving it as an XLS file. If you're going to use one of the major softwares, regression software, statistical analysis tools, and so on, to analyze your data that you've collected, then you need to keep it as a CSV file. So you can't change, because those other software packages normally do not recognize XLS files. Because what they've got to do is they've got to know when a column starts and when a column ends for your data. And that's why the CSV format exists. Because think of it as each one of these columns, like each one of these cells. So for instance, here, the start date, end date, the IP address, it's not the IP address, it's whether it's like the identifier, the progress, duration, and so on, right? So each of these in like behind the scenes in computer speak, I guess, there's going to be like a tab or a comma separating these. And so that's why you need to have the file, and that's why Qualtrics will download it. If you download it from Qualtrics, it'll be in CSV format and not in XLS format. So if you're going to use SAS Enterprise Guide, SPSS, Data, even R, I think, in any of those, right? Python, whatever. Then what you need to do is you need to keep it in CSV format, and then every time you're cleaning the data, it's good to just do it in one stint. But if you can't, then you're just going to have to spread everything back out. Okay, so how do we do this? Well, the quick way to do it is to just highlight your columns. I don't have too many. This isn't a huge study that I did. I've done larger ones before. And so what we're going to do, I don't know, I think this is the last one. So we're going to highlight all of our columns. We're going to hold down Shift, and then we're going to just move this out a bit like that. And then that by itself, it moves every single column out by the amount. So it doesn't need to be. I mean, it's fine if there's still some overlap. I need to be able to read the column headers basically. So the titles. Okay, I think this is fine. All right. So once you're comfortable with that, so now, yeah. So now this is good enough to then um, move over or to proceed from here. All right. So it's important to eventually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to clean this up, and then later on, I'm going to create a separate worksheet down here. This is the other thing too. If you create other worksheets and then you save it as a CSV, it only saves the first worksheet. So again, that's why you want to save it as an XLS file eventually if you're going to be doing the analysis in Excel. So a response ID, this is going to be each individual, like this is going to be form the backbone of the responses. Like I don't know who these people are, which is great. That's the way you want it. But they've been assigned random IDs. And so this is really, when I get to the regression analysis, what I'm going to do first is I'm going to create another worksheet, and I'm going to just put select columns into that worksheet. And so this is going to be my first column. Probably, actually, it doesn't really need to be actually, because I just know that all these are different. This was the very first step in my data cleaning process that I've already done. Is I went response ID and I sorted them and I made sure that there weren't any duplicates. So right now, after duplicates, because there were people that somehow managed to take my study more than once, to take the survey more than once. And so after I cleared those out, my power analysis said that I ran said that I needed at least 80 people, and I got double that. However, we're going to see that I'm going to be dropping a good chunk of those. I'm going to drop down, I think, to at least 100. So, all right. So I guess we can do that first. We can just go, because what you want to do, remember, is you want to go to your independent variables, which is what they're actually filling out. And so if their income, remember, income was the very last variable, and we are going to need to take the log of all of these, but prefer not to say. It's goofy. Okay. Um, sometimes, as a brief note, sometimes you'll see that they just somehow manage to screw this up. And so what you'll do, like this is obviously 24,990, right? Because the O, they just typed an O instead of a zero. So if it's obvious what it is, I don't have a problem with correcting it. Um, but if it's not obvious, I don't. And I know that some people will push back against this because they say, oh, well, the data needs to remain pure. And so then what do you do with things like this where you know that that's what they meant, right? So 24,990. So I just, if it's obvious what they meant, man, maybe they meant that to be. Here's another good example. Did they mean for this to be per month? Um, I don't know. I mean, I would just leave this in here as it is because I did say annual income in the question. Now here, if they have commas, let's see, what are these? These should all be general. So highlight that, make sure general selected. It should get rid of commas. Yeah, it did. Okay, good. And some of these responses are just goofy, right? Like, how do you? Okay, well, they put a K in there. I mean, if it's obvious, like some people just can't. They can't seem to follow directions, which is infuriating. So you've got to exercise some hand holding, but others, like they're getting paid for the survey. You don't have an income of zero. You're literally getting paid. I guess they don't consider this income, but yeah. And so this is a continuous variable. So writing in there, prefer not to say, right? I'm just going to leave that blank because that doesn't, like that's, yeah, it's gonna read that as a character and not as a number. So all right, anyway. So we'll do that. We'll go through the columns and make sure that all of those, like the income, are correct, because when we start transforming variables and analyzing the data, we need to make sure that our columns are correct. All right, so starting with column S, these are all my variables of interest, right? And so you remember each one of these questions. So this is giving the timing in Qualtrics, which is important. I'm going to have to make a determination as to how long, how many seconds, because this is in seconds, right? Yeah. So how many seconds did they, how many seconds elapsed, which is this one, before they submitted this page, right? Oh no, sorry, hang on. That's, okay, I'm gonna have to go back and see. But anyway, it does have the time on there, and so I'm going to see if they spent like next to note like just a few seconds. It's impossible to add 10 sets of 10 numbers each in like 5 seconds or whatever it is. So okay, and then here we have both the worker and then the manager. Okay, so these are my variables of interest, and um, the problem is that this does nothing for me if they didn't fill these out. So if these are blank, which you can see a fair amount of them are, if these are blank, then that does me a whole lot of no good. Um, so one thing I can do is I can save this now as an XLS, which I'm gonna do that right now. I'm just gonna pause it and save it, pause the recording, and then I'll save this as an XLS. Okay, sorry about that. I was looking for a play button and I forgot I have to just hit the pause button again. Okay, so we are back, and I saved this now as an XLS file, which means now that I can add additional worksheets. And so um, every time I save a file, I label it slightly differently, and I don't save over my old files. And the reason for that is because if in the most recent file, if I messed up, then I can just go back to the previous step and redo it. So I really encourage you to do that. Don't keep saving over your old work when you're doing data cleanup and analysis. All right, so the step is going to be to remove these rows where the people didn't actually do, they just filled out all the demographic variables and then they didn't do this at all. So that's not good. Yeah. So I want to see, did they get to the very end, right? Did they do these? And that's essentially going to be my litmus test is did they make it all the way to the end where they said, yes, these are correct, no, they're not correct, and so on. Okay, so the ones that did not, then what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete these rows and then I'm going to save this again with like IV answers or something like that, so it's obvious what this is. So again, if I mess that up, I can always go back to the way the data is now and before deleting all these rows. So, all right, so here we go. Deleting, this is the part that makes researchers cry because we technically paid for these. It's way too late now to go back, and this is why I recommend that you actually I might keep this one because they did the worker stuff but they didn't do the manager stuff. That's really weird. But anyway, these are, yeah, see that none of these that I highlighted, oh, except, yeah, they didn't answer anything. So starting question one here, these didn't answer. So anyway, um, this is why it's important to do what I'm doing now instead of waiting a couple of months like I've done, is to immediately after you get, whether you're using prime panels, whether you're using, it doesn't really matter what which platform you use, mturk, whatever, however you got the data. What they're going to do is they're going to say, oh, is the data, like, did this participant actually do the work, right? Did they do the work? And so if the answer is no, then you obviously, or they took it multiple times, then you obviously want to report their respondent ID and say, hey, they didn't do it. And so when that happens, then you'll get refunded for all the people that didn't take that even though they signed up and they were in there for a while, they really didn't do your study because you don't want to pay for you don't want to pay for people to just screw around. Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure that each of these that I'm actually deleting deserve to be deleted because these are valuable observations, right? Potentially that I don't want to. Yeah, this is a lot. I should have done this. So each one of these, right? Each one of these things I wasted, whatever, however much. I don't remember how much I was paying them, like $1 or something. I forget. No, more than that. Yeah, that's kind of unfortunate. Okay. Now we're back to this. I'm holding control down, by the way, and not shift. And the nice thing is, I guess that I just realized, is that if you're holding down control and you left click here, you can just drag it down, and it's almost as though you hit the shift button instead of the control button. So that's pretty cool. So this person just said, I don't know. Okay, that's fine. Right, that's fine. We can work with that. Like, I don't care if they're terrible at math. What I do care about is if they cheated in order to get the bonus. If they just said, you know what, I'm not going to add all this stuff up, and it's a competition. So I said it's a competition mainly because I wanted to see. Sorry, give me a sec. Okay, so some of them did start, but they didn't make it all the way through, and that's fine. If it's too daunting of a task for them, and they were attempting some of it, and then they just don't. Because what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a new dependent variable. I'm going to create a new dependent variable, and that dependent variable is going to be the fraud, right? Did they commit fraud? Did they cheat? Did they cheat? Okay, I'm not really sure why that one didn't work, but let's try. I guess I'll do it one at a time. Okay. And I suppose it would also help too, because now I'm scrolling down, so we want to freeze that top. Oh, or I guess we want to freeze the. No, I don't want to do that. Okay, so I just need to mentally memorize that question 1 is 18, but it's basically going to be like question 19 is going to be the first one on this. So question 19 is the second worker column. So question 19 and then question 29 are the ones I want to make sure. So is there something under either one of them? And if so, I keep the row. Okay, so we're going to do, yeah, I'll just freeze the top row. So this way it helps me so that way I stay oriented. Okay. So I don't know what none means, but here they did, it looks like they did, yeah, they did go through them, so it's fine. These did not, so those are bye-bye. This one didn't do any of them. So again, if there's nothing under the earlier ones and there's nothing at the end, if it's either or, if there's one or the other, I keep it for now. Because think of this as like a hedge that you're just pruning away over time. Okay, delete that. And it is, if you're thinking, wow, this is meticulous, you're thinking that because it is. So I'm going to split this video. It's already been 17 minutes, so this is probably too long of a video as it is. All right, so I think now we have, and how many observations are we down to now? Ugh. Okay, well, I mean, the good news is that after cutting all of that, we're still above the 80. We're still above the minimum of power analysis that the power analysis said we need. So again, we have to cut off 2 at the beginning. I'm going to unfreeze the panes for now, the top row pane. And so subtracting those 2 out, we're now going to be at 90, which is still greater than 80. It's not as many as I really would like, but I think I can probably, I might have to trim a few more, but at this point, like I've really got to sort of, because I don't want to go back and get more data. So this is, yeah, and so I'm going to have to make some determinations as far as like they didn't even do this part, right? They didn't even do this part. And so yeah, so the idea is that I'm going to just see, I'm going to have to see, because if they didn't do the first part, they did the second part. They really didn't follow the instructions. So it's like they just skipped through the first part and then they just said, yes, it's correct. Like they just said, yes, it's all correct. So to me, that's fraud, right? That's cheating because they didn't follow the instructions. And they were just skipping to the end and just saying, yes, it's all correct. Yes, it's all correct. Give me my money. So, all right, I think I have enough to work with for now. And so, yeah, I'll see you in the next video where we will go back to the beginning and work through some of these columns.